to mundo fine, night train to the end. Running hard and running fast to meet my future and away from my past. Taking the gamble that cannot last. Night train to the end.
Well, welcome to the Frater SH Night Show. And my bookstore is lulu.com/Frater, lulu.com/spotlight/FraterSH with no capitals and no spaces in that word. Okay, our first story is what will happen if someone actually dies in space? It is an inevitability that space agencies and private firms will one day have to face during manned space missions. Commercial spaceflight companies such as Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin are now offering exclusive opportunities for celebrities and civilians to travel to space. Traditional astronauts have been subject to rigorous training and medical scrutiny before going to space, and the risks of death from natural causes was considered remote. But in this new era of space tourism, it appears medical screening may not be carried out and only minimal pre flight training provided. With a wide variety of people now going to space and the prospect in the coming years of humans establishing bases on the moon and beyond, it raises an important question: what happens if someone dies in space? Under international space law, individual countries are responsible for authorizing and supervising all national space activity, whether governmental or private. In the United States, commercial tourist space flights require a license for launch to be issued by the Federal Aviation Administration. Should someone die on a commercial tourist mission, there would need to be a determination as to the cause of death. If the death of a spaceflight participant was due to mechanical fault in the spacecraft, the Federal Aviation Administration would look to suspend further launches by the company pending an investigation. If mechanical failure is discounted, there would need to be a consideration to the overall duty of care to all travelers by the commercial provider, an assessment made by winner did everything possible to prevent the person's death. Uncomfortable but inevitable. The time spent in space on these tourist missions currently ranges from a few minutes to a few days. This means that the risk of death in space for natural causes is very low, though not impossible. The question to what to do if someone dies in space will become significantly more pertinent and complex when humans embark on longer missions deeper into space and even one day become permanently established in outer space. Fundamentally, there will need to be some sort of investigative process put in place instead to establish the cause of death of humans in outer space. There have been inquests before, such as inquiry into the Columbia shuttle disaster in 2003, where NASA's space shuttle Columbia disintegrated as it returned to Earth, killing 7 astronauts on board. But these have been special investigations into high-profile accidents and concerned only U.S. spaceflight. As opportunities for space travel expand, it's inevitable that even though accidents, illness, or age, that deaths in space or in another celestial body will occur. A former procedure for investigating deaths on long duration missions and space settlements will be necessary to ensure that there is a clear information on who died, the causes of death, and so lessons could be learned and possible patterns detected. Many of the procedures associated with inquests and investigations could be imported from Earth. International space law provides the default position whereby a country or has registered a spacecraft has jurisdiction over that space object and any personnel. And it's likely that a country with such jurisdiction would be the natural authority to commence a inquest to determine the procedures to deal with a death in space. While this is a useful starting point, an agreement tailored to specific settlement or mission would probably be better. Planning a mission to space because considering factors like power, food, protection against radiation and waste disposal, establishing processes concerns what to do if a person dies, incorporating these processes to any plan which will make a traumatic event slightly less so. Having an agreement in place to outset of a mission is even more important if there are a number of countries participating. Practical considerations, in addition to the legal dimension, missions that send humans further into solar space will need to consider the physical disposal of human remains. Here it is important to take into account that different cultures treat their dead in very different ways. On short missions, it's likely the body would be brought back to Earth. The body would need to be preserved and stored to avoid contamination of the surviving crew. On a round trip to Mars, which would be years in duration, it may be prospect in coming decades the body could possibly be frozen in the cold of space to reduce its weight and make it easier to store on its way back to Earth. But if we start to colonize outer space, bodies may need to be disposed or rather than stored. Although Star Trek fans may recall the way Spock's body was just in space, this probably wouldn't be desirable in real life. Countries may object to having a human corpse floating in space, while the body itself may contribute to the growing issues created by space debris. The family of the deceased might want their loved ones returned to them. Disposal of human remains on a colony is similarly fraught. The body of a settler buried on another planet may biologically contaminate that planet. Cremation is also likely to contaminate and could be resource intensive. In time, there will undoubtedly be technical solutions to the storage and disposal of human remains in space, but the ethical issues around death in space cut across anthropological, legal, and cultural boundaries. The idea may be uncomfortable to contemplate, but one of many conversations we will need to have as humans become a spacefaring species. Okay, the next story is Inside the Lives of Australia's Yowie Hunters, which I guess the Yowie is like a form of Bigfoot. Dean Harrison packs his camping gear, binoculars, and thermal imaging gear, about to lead a multi-day expedition through southeast Queensland's rainforest in search of the Australian Yowie. He is known as the country's leading Yowie expert among cryptozoology circles and has been tracking the elusive and controversial creature for 24 years. Now 52, Mr. Harrison describes the encounter he believes changed his life, inspiring him to create the world's first and most comprehensive online database dedicated to finding Yowie, known as Australia's Bigfoot. Mr. Harrison said he was living in a community north of the Gold Coast in 1997, going on a run in a suburban area fringed by rainforests, which he believes a two-legged creature stopped him in his tracks. Suddenly I got these overwhelming sensations I couldn't explain. It was just this overwhelming feeling of dread. I couldn't move, Mr. Harrison said. I was aware that someone was coming up behind me slowly. I could hear this slow dragging as it was coming through the forest. He described turning to see a huge 7-foot silhouette standing on 2 feet and covered in dark hair, watching him before running back into the bushes. I thought whatever this was behind me wasn't human. I thought I was going to die, Mr. Harrison said. The self-possessed Yowie hunter began researching the ape-like creatures, starting Australian Yowie Research, an online database for others to record their encounters shortly after. After you have an event, a dramatic event such as that, you want answers, and there was nothing there, he said. There was the embryonic stages of the internet, and I wanted to know more. The site today has thousands of voice recordings, sketches, forum comments, and sightings of the 1,700 to now part of a growing online movement of Yowie hunters. Mr. Harrison said he has waiting lists filled with people hoping to join his searches through Queensland, Southeast, and other locations in Australia and the Pacific. These days, I can't keep up with the amount of reports coming to my office, he said. Online, several other groups have emerged dedicated Yowie hunters and the supernatural, with some amassing 6,000 members. Zoologist and cryptozoologist author of Australian cryptozoology, Gary Opet, has spent his career exploring Queensland and northern New South Wales bush. After 23 years of hosting a popular ABC wildlife radio show, inviting listeners to call in with the unusual animal sightings, Mr. Opet became fascinated and perplexed by hundreds of accounts describing Australia's ape man. We have no physical evidence whatsoever, Mr. Opet said of the Yowie. The animal has been significantly searched for because nobody believes it exists, and we have anecdotal evidence. But the encounters people have with the animal all describe the same features, the same behavior. He explained that there are several theories explaining the Yowie's contentious existence. One traces its origins back to ape-like skeletal remains in Papua New Guinea. One's linked by land in Australia. Another theory is that they originate in Southeast Asia, while traveling to Australia, loosely related to the orangutan and North America's Bigfoot. Others believe the creature is more marsupial-like, a surviving prehistoric remnant of Australia's megafauna. Mr. Opet around Australia. As Opet said, around Australia, many indigenous legends describe a man-like creatures covered in hair, believed to be the same animal. The cryptozoologist runs Yowie tours through a Byron Bay Eco Tour company, taking the Yowie curious and those who are experiencing encounters themselves through the areas of the forest where sightings have been reported. He said that the online community is tight-knit and growing with social media as more and more information gets shared online. These days, people go online and they're surprised to discover the dozens of other people that have encountered the same thing, often in the very same area, Mr. Opet said. I'm not saying I believe the Yowie exists, but there's still so much we don't know. There's no scientific investigation because there's nothing to work on, but once we have actual DNA evidence of the animal, it will be one of the most important scientific discoveries ever made. Well, that's all for the show tonight. It's kind of a short one, but there'll be more every night. Thank you.